Hi everyone.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the channel. Today is September 15th, and our topic of discussion is a garden is not for show. It begins with a quote by Epictetus. First, practice not letting people know who you are. Keep your philosophy to yourself for a bit. In just the manner that fruit is produced, the seed buried for a season, hidden, growing gradually so it may come to full maturity. But if the grain sprouts before the stalk is fully developed, it will never ripen. That is the kind of plant you are, displaying fruit too soon, and the winter will kill you.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean that's a nice saying. It's having a hard time knowing of when is it too soon and when is it too late and when is it the right time, right? Like that seems like the logistics of the issue. Like I love it. Like yeah, don't share what you're working on, your philosophies, your plans. Don't share that too soon because they might be squashed. Squashed down ultimately, right? But then when do you know that it's ready for sharing? You just kind of have to sense it or something, or like you work hard enough on it to, once the plan is built and everything is ready, maybe that's when you might feel like, oh, the fruit is ready to be taken down from the tree, so this is when I'm sharing it. So there might be some sort of an internal feeling of readiness. But otherwise, it's hard for me to imagine that. Now I can see that there might be some tools to help with that or something, but because I've definitely experienced that. Like I shared something too early, and a couple of things happen, right? Like people accept it and say, "Oh yeah, that's a wonderful idea," and by them actually saying how awesome it is and I should continue, it kind of kills the drive. It's like, yeah, there's just kind of like, I'm like, well, they liked it, and it's like kind of like, but I don't have, it's like it somehow it loses its power or something. And then the second one is this, that it's like you share it too soon, and now it's not accepted. It's essentially it's squashed down, right, too early or something. It's not strong enough to be like, wow, you actually have something here. You have fruit. Versus like, well, no, you're showing me some little plant. What is this? I don't need this. I don't want this. I don't see the future of the fruit yet. So I don't want this. I reject it. I squash it down, kind of a thing or something. Yeah. So yeah, not sharing it too soon. Yeah. And both of these are ultimately the remedy is like don't share it too soon, right? Like don't develop it first and then share it. Yeah, it's kind of the same.
I do think about this a lot, not necessarily with ideas, like when to share my idea. I think about it more with like how to share some knowledge that I think that I have about something. And I often find that like if I hold my knowledge to myself and I'm not so eager to be like, look what shiny, cool new thing I learned.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm not like that and I keep it to myself a little bit, it embeds itself into my worldview in a much more different way than if I start talking about it. And when I start talking about it, I'm talking about it at a certain level of depth. And now whoever I'm talking about it to...
Or is it also how you're talking about it?
Well, yeah, because the more it sits in my system, the more it enables me to talk about it in a different way, aka the how changes. But I can only talk about it how I know how to talk about it right now. So if something is a very new concept or idea, it's not developed, and now whatever I'm sharing with the other person, we're staying at this very superficial level of the thing. But if I hold on to it and I work it out and I journal about it, or I sit and I stare out a window and I just were on a hike or something and it just, randomly comes through and I can work on it a little bit more, then when it comes time to share because somebody's asked a question or it's relevant in like a weird way to a situation, now when I go to like bring that forward into the space, it feels it feels like it has more
like
legs
ready.
to it. Yeah.
Like it feels more ready. It's more ripe.
Yeah, exactly what they're talking about with I love the image of the seed and the growth and stuff. It's like it's ready when it just.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like I mean that's cool. So you're taking it in a way like, hey, like I found something new, and I don't want to necessarily share this with anyone. I want to kind of mull it over, think about it, maybe just put it in the background. Maybe this will pop back up, and then I will be able to kind of dive deeper into it, and then just have my kind of time on my own with myself with these thoughts. And then once it's worked up to some sort of like, it doesn't have to be completed, it just needs to be like solid enough for you to feel internally like, hey, I'm ready to share this. I can intelligently talk about this. I can answer some questions about this. I can do all these things. So now I'm sharing it. Yeah. Okay, cool.
And now Oh, I'm sorry.
No, because I was trying to reiterate what you were saying.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna then, but you can go ahead. I think I can remember that. Okay, go ahead.
Because something you said was interesting of like you kind of like laid out the like how the scenario would happen when the sharing takes place, and it allows me to be more relaxed when I share something because I can answer those questions versus if I share something too soon, I haven't.
It makes you relax.
Total, yeah. Because if I share too soon, I'm almost anxious about it, and if somebody asks a question,
if you find a new coin and you want to share it, you're too anxious, and the anxiety bringing down the anxiety is this deep diving. Going over now, it's more confident, more calm, less anxious. Now I can go share it, and now I don't feel the anxiety anymore because I have there's more like a foundation of what this is. That's interesting. Yeah, that's great. That's cool. Yeah. What I was gonna say? Oh yeah, I was gonna just say like how it works kind of in me, right? Like I am, it's interesting because I was gonna say I was asking well, depending on like how you're sharing it, right? Like I can see myself finding this new information, right? Like oh, I just watched some podcast about something, and I learned something, some one-liner, right, about something, and now. I don't necessarily feel that like, oh my God, like if someone would ask, if I share this with someone and they ask me a question like, oh, like I'm not gonna have the answer, or like I don't process that way. So I don't have this feeling of like anxiety to share that. I actually want to share it. So I actually keep diving deeper into it by sharing it. Because I'm not, and when I'm saying how I share it, it's not like, hey guys, do you know what I know? Right? It's not like that. No. It's like, hey guys, I just heard this on this podcast yesterday. So I'm like giving them really, I don't know anything about it, but do we want to talk about it? Like, what do you think about this? And like, what do I think about it? Just kind of like, maybe we cannot go deeper than it will allow us based on what we know. Maybe further research needs to have in order to have the more knowledge. But like I'm using the kind of superficial like, oh, I just shared this with everyone to actually understand it better from my perspective of hearing myself saying it out loud to someone. And then they're having their reaction to what I'm saying. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. What do you think about, oh, now I'm getting something back. Maybe they don't know. They ask me a question. I said, ooh, I don't know. That's all I know. Sorry. But isn't that interesting? Like I don't have a problem with not knowing the answer. So that's why I a lot of times maybe just bring things up more. They're not all planned out, and they don't have like, I don't have like an agenda to work on something or share something like, hey, I like to share something that I've been working on, right? Like it's more of like,
I don't have that either. It only comes up if like it's relevant.
It's relevant. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's cool. Like there are different ways of, that's cool to see that there are these different ways of processing that same stuff or something.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's not to say that like I wouldn't like just open a conversation about a podcast, because of course I would.
Yes. And of course I have things I wouldn't share, or I have things I'm not sharing purposefully with others that I'm working on for
That's
these
what I
reasons.
think it is. I think they're talking about like with the stuff that we're, the beliefs we're trying to get to the bottom of, or the ideas that we have about how the world works, and these types of things are like work through them a little bit, because we're all so confused out here that like if I'm bringing something too soon to like the situation, I run the risk of confusing myself more and getting myself into this anxious mess, because I want to feel like,
yeah, it's very connected with anxiety. Like you're saying, like it would create this anxious mess if you were in the situation where like, well, what if I say something to them and then they say something smart back to me, and now I go, well, is that true? Do they know? I don't even know. Like, so I'm confused. Like that might create anxiety.
I think
to me it's just like, oh no, this is just like a off the cuff thing, off the cuff. If I really want to know and understand it, I know I have to go dive deeper into documentation and go actually research.
The reason why this is hitting with me is because I teach yoga, I write, I post on social media, and so it's always like the question of, what am I sharing?
And you always research it, and you prepare for these things. Like even when you're writing, it's not like I just wrote it, there you go. No, you write it and then you think about it and you look at it differently and you work on it. Yeah, you work. And
I found more success in like talking from a frame of mind of like, here's all this stuff I've been working on for the past 10 years, and not like the shiny new thing that I learned last week.
Well, for example, like an email, see, like now, how am I sharing it? Like I would never send an email about some new shiny thing I just learned. The email seems very formal or something, but in the conversation, I would share it, right? So it's like depending on where. Like if I was writing an email, because I'm writing it, now I would catch myself to say, oh, like why am I sharing this thing that I literally just found out yesterday and I don't know anything about? Like, oh, I shouldn't do that. Like I would have some sort of a mechanism to say like, well, if I'm typing it, I'm gonna have to say more smart things, and I'm like, well, I wouldn't share that because that's too new, or I would have that filter saying don't share that. That's you just found out about it and you don't know anything about it. But in the conversation it just kind of goes, right? I don't have that filter in conversation very, very often. It's just like, hey, I just heard this thing yesterday. Like, what do you think? That's crazy, right? Or like, what do you know? Like, I'm open to this. Like, hey, it can go any which way, and also whatever you say or whatever I say is not the ultimate truth. It's just some ideas, and we are then welcome to go and continue to dig deeper into it if we are interested in it. It's just kind of like different ways of presenting that same thing. But I totally hear you, like, because you're like used to this process. I also think that the reason why you're doing it, because it was, like you said, you got more success, you got more maybe engagement, or more response back, and people are interested. People even look at it and say, oh my God, what a thoughtful way of expressing yourself.
It's clear that all of that.
It's clear based on your writing that you've thought about it for sure, and so that is 100%. Yeah, that's what I mean. Otherwise, it's just like, hey, what is this? A first draft? You know what I mean? It's
like basically a summary of like some other person's work.
Summary, somebody said something and now you're writing about it or something. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, great.
So that's like a good like vote of confidence of, keep doing the thing where you're cultivating the garden before you're showing it.
Yep.
Okie dokie. Ryan says, After all you've read, it might be tempting to think, this stuff is great. I get it. I'm a Stoic. But it's not that easy. Just because you agree with the philosophy doesn't mean the roots have fully taken hold in your mind. Fooling with books so you can sound smart or have an intimidating library is like tending a garden to impress your neighbors. Growing one to feed a family, that's a pure and profitable use of your time. The seeds of Stoicism are long underground. Do the work required to nurture and tend to them, so that they and you are prepared and sturdy for the hard winters of life.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because, yes, of course, it's the action is what Stoicism is, right? It's not the reading of the books or really any book is ultimately not fully realized until the action that the book is calling for is actually realized, right? So the book is only halfway realized if you just read it. You're like, hey, I know all this stuff, but I'll do some other stuff or I'll do it differently, right? And we are all on our different paths, right? Like, this listening path that I am on, that I'm trying to get to a point where I can listen to criticism about myself without getting to a point where I cannot listen to it, right? Because that's ultimately what happens. Like I just can't listen to this anymore, right? But why do I get to a point where I cannot listen to it? So I'm working on to get to a place where I can listen to it, right? And so I can. So that's my current 3-month goal, to work on this thing that I want to improve, because I'm pretty okay with listening to people out there with their problems and their issues. Even if somewhat they have my issues with me a little bit, I can still kind of hear that. But it's the people who are the closest to you, right? And then the people who are closest to you, when they have a problem with you, now that is the most difficult thing to hear. And not hear just the words like, I'm just going to shut up and not say anything. But internally, I'm like, that's BS. I don't agree with that. No. Hear it in a way like, I'm actually hearing from you how you are looking at it, and then I need to almost remove myself from it, and that removing myself from it is really difficult, but doable, because this is ultimately what some of these philosophies and therapies and all kinds of different folks who are ultimately achieve these types of places. And it's not a state, it's a you figured out how to able to handle it.
It's a different
Right.
habit of receiving information.
Different, and I don't know how they hear it. I don't know what they hear. There has to be some mechanism that says, hold on, this is about me. Hold on. I have to hear it like this, right? Currently, that mechanism is maybe there, but it's not kicking off soon enough. And so it goes onto the side of, I'm taking it personally. This is about me. Now I want to retaliate back and say, that's not true. That's not how it was. That's your point of view. But as I'm saying it, I'm not listening to you. I can't, right? Because I'm in my head. This is being. I'm feeling. This is attacking me. It's like a dog is attacking me. I can't talk to you right now. I gotta deal with this dog, right? So it's so I'm trying to get to a point where, I'm not ignoring it, but know how. Oh, there's something rising. Okay, I know how to deal with it, and continue to hear the criticism, or not criticism, but maybe just the opinion of the other person, how the point of view of the other person. I might be taking it as a criticism and inside, but it's not necessarily a criticism. It's just a point of view, right? So I'm trying to get to this place, right? And so that is my actioning, right? So now, should I not be reading books, even though I'm not actioning them, some of those things from him, right? I would say to Ryan, well, no, let me keep reading these books, And if I get something from it, and it might be too soon, and I might want to share it with my parents or something. It's like, hey, I heard about this. You know, like I like to share those things, and but I'm also working on. So some things that I've read and learned from, I'm working on and I'm actioning, and something I'm just reading and collecting the data, and I'm not actioning on them yet. And he's saying, don't share those or something, right? Like, don't share the ones you haven't started acting on, and these potentially you can't start sharing or something.
Maybe he's saying more like with the stuff that you want to share, like, why are you sharing it? Because he's calling out this why in here, which is sort of like, there's this flavor of wanting to impress other people by having the answer, by knowing the smart thing.
So if I let's say I talk to my parents, right, and I found some information about something, but it's very vague, it's just top level kind of a thing, and I share it with them, like, am I trying to impress them? I don't know if I'm trying to impress them. I'm trying to give them, like, I feel like what I'm doing internally, maybe I am impressing them and I'm not aware of it. I'm trying to impress them, but I'm not aware of it. But what I'm trying to actually do, what I'm doing is like wanted to share it with my loved ones. Like, I'm like, hey, I just learned this new stuff. I don't know if you know about it, but this is what I've heard. This new thing, like, isn't that interesting that this is what's going on over there, right? And it's not like a political thing, or no, it's like, hey, like, I don't know, so, you know, like identity of, you know, like the looking for your identity versus focusing on your goals. The identity has to be there first versus those goals. Like, I don't understand all of that around it. Nevertheless, I want to share it with them because, like, maybe I'm hoping, like, oh, maybe in their mind it will click and they'll say, oh yeah, that's right, I cannot do this before this. I have to do this first and then this. Oh, okay. Like, I'm hoping for some sort of a connection on some of those points. So I could say, like, well, I want to have those connections. I want to have more connections or deeper connections. So then I should research it and become an expert in it before I share it with them. And that's like, well, maybe I don't want to become an expert, but I just want to share the little that I know. I mean, I get it. I understand it. Like, I would never take that information and go make a presentation. So that's also another thing, right? So I need to just make that line of who am I sharing it with, and this new shiny coin, and how am I sharing it, right? If I'm sharing it from a perspective, hey guys, I just found this, look, hey, share this, look, I just found this, right? Like, I don't know anything about it. Okay, cool, right? I'm sharing it with my loved ones maybe, or like people I'm trying to just like connect or something. It's not this egoistic, I want to impress somebody by my knowledge. I understand. That's where the line is, right? Anything behind it, 100% agree. Don't share it. Don't be talking about some concept you're not an expert on to a public or to a bunch of your friends or something like that, because it's like you are now trying to definitely impress them what you know and they don't know, or something like that, right? But
yeah,
it could also be hidden in something like that. Like I said, like, oh, I just wanted to share it with my loved ones, but there is no egoistic thing in there, but maybe there is. I just don't see it. So yeah, I mean, it could be all these things, but I'm not having pushbacks from many people about that, you know.
And I don't know if that would be the reason to change. I think the reason to change would be like, would I get more out of this concept if I kept it to myself and I made my first task to work on it to a deep level and then bring it out? Does the bringing it out prematurely stop me from investigating it further? Because something you said earlier was like, well, yeah, I share the idea and then like it loses its steam.
Yeah, but that's
so like,
that's
is
only,
there part of that in there?
I see. So, but that I see it only on things that I'm working on.
Right, like ideas.
But this is not something I'm working on. This is like, oh, I found something. I want to share it, and actually, the sharing it makes me want to go. If this conversation is now good, now it makes me want to go deeper into it. But if I need to go, I found something out, I shouldn't share it with anyone before I research it. then I'll say, okay, there was just some data. Okay, goodbye. More important things are coming, right? Like I'm not gonna, like there is something that's like, well, I'm not gonna go research every single thing that I've ever heard, super deep or deep enough for me to feel confident to share that with somebody. Like I would say then, like I would just say, I'm not interested in that. Right, like it's more superficial. It's coming through. Like a lot of stuff's coming through, and I'm kind of like, okay, good to know. Okay, good to know. Okay, good to know.
And,
right?
like, it's not, yeah, there's definitely
like I don't
that
need
filter.
To go research,
there's definitely a filter process, but the things that you are sharing with people are the things that you have already vetted and they've already passed the filtration process.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is a great idea.
And you're this one way or the other, this requires more research. Having the conversation with a loved one is not going to stop that or anything. Like this is still like part of the priority. And so I guess it's just like, and then it's not like you wouldn't have anything to share with them. It's like, no, I just like bring the level down to like, here's where I share with you. I share from this space and this is the space that I'm working on things on. I'm not saying you have to go like this. I'm just like, I have the visual of this like in my mind or something.
I mean, I can definitely...
Because I'm not saying that this is a problem for you. Like, if this is a problem for you based on, am I really trying to impress people?
Based on reactions. The reactions from people that I'm getting, 99%
yeah, but I
of the
don't
time
think that I don't think that that's the reason. I think the reason is, am I getting like those ideas? Are they getting stopped en route?
So that's not what I'm saying. Okay, so what are you saying? Okay, because so that's not what I said. Okay, so
you said
because I'm trying to figure out.
You're saying that it's not a problem because you're not getting you're getting good reactions from people.
Yeah, well, not good reactions. I'm not getting problematic reactions.
Yes,
yeah.
And what I'm hearing,
it's like a light conversation. Everybody goes home and it's like, hey,
sure.
okay, good talking to you. See you. Bye.
And so, but I'm hearing what he's saying as like the reason you don't want to do that doesn't have anything to do with the other people's reactions. It's like, does this stop me from growing? Does it stop me from growing to share this with other people, even if their reactions are good? Because he's talking about it through the lens of this garden and like, if it breaks too soon in the winter, the fruit doesn't ripen or something like that. He has like this whole thing in there. And so I think like the fruit ripening is like me really benefiting at the deepest level possible from whatever these concepts are.
Right, but deepest level possible. How do I know that I know the data deep enough for me to share it so I get something different from it? Like that's like, I don't know. I don't understand how to calculate that, you know? It's almost like I just need to be like I would just have to start doing it that way. But like again, if there were some like benefits from it or something, like or
the benefits would just be that like more full growth, like the plant that's like fully blossoming.
Because like okay, but we're not. But also we cannot talk about this as it's always like this, right? It's not always like this. If it's something that I want to share, I prepare and I study it and I go dive deep into things that I want to actually share and have impact, right? So I do that, right? But other times I just see a shiny coin and I'm like, I don't want to research this too deeply because it's a good info to have. I get the concept. Okay, maybe the action is now I am not eating sugar. Perfect. I got the action out of it. I don't need to go understand exactly how insulin is triggered from whatever. Like I could, but and I do, right? But like I don't. But I'm not gonna go try to like talk about those specific systems in there. No, I just want to say, hey, did you know that when you don't eat sugar, this is good for you, right? And then somebody might be like,
topics
that's
that
cool.
they're talking about.
I never thought about that.
Like they might not be talking about like a scientific fact. They might be talking about just like, hey, these are principles by which to live.
That's what I'm saying. So there are two different things, like things that we are working on. Let's say I'm working on a new song. yes, I don't want to share that with anyone until that song is done. 100%. You're working on an article. You don't want to share that article until that article is done.
Or even like,
right?
and not just the article, but what's inside the article. I want to make sure that what I put
Yes.
inside that article
Yes.
is done.
It is done,
in terms
researched, and all of that stuff,
Right.
and it's done. Those are the things that are in the bucket of what we're working on. Great, but these what I'm saying is the bucket of he's saying, oh, you just find some new information in the book, don't share it. That's what I've heard, right? And I'm like, well, why should I not share it if it's defined and logical and understood? And if I talk to my dad about it, he's gonna say, oh my God, thanks for sharing, right? Even though I don't have like, what's his name? Peter Attia's depth of understanding of all of those little concepts. And only then I should share that information. I'm like, well, no, because I'm not even gonna go down there ever, right? I'll read the book and I'll do some actions out of it, but I'm not gonna become an expert on a glucose just so I can have a conversation with my dad or something. That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
They're different. They're different things. They're different. In this thing, yes. In this thing, not so much.
Also, like what you learn from Attia is like it's a piece that fits into like an already well developed through a lifetime of looking at this sort of thing web of knowledge. It's like taking one thing and plugging it into a web of knowledge that already exists. And so like you can, in that way, you can get to a place where you are quickly deepening your understanding of something through just one exposure of listening to a podcast or something like that. So like,
but even then, I would not necessarily know when am I ready. When is my knowledge deep enough so I can actually share it? Like I don't know that level, right? So is it? Well, I read, let's say, Attia's book, Outlive. I listened to maybe 3 or 4 of his podcasts about all of this stuff. We've had conversations about it, so like, okay, we've. Am I ready to talk about it? But no,
I think again, like you
can
use.
So I would say, yeah, I was ready the first time I heard it, and then now, based on this, I would say, well, no, I'm not ready, right? So it's.
I think you can just use.
This is what I'm saying. It's a different.
Yeah.
They're different buckets of things.
Use the criteria.
They're not in the same.
Am
place.
I trying to impress somebody with this?
Right.
Because if I'm trying to impress somebody with it,
so this is I know what I'm doing. Like I don't want to impress anybody. There's never really.
When you're saying where am I ready, I'm trying to get to the point of like here's some criteria. How do I know that I'm ready? Okay, well it passes the first test.
So this is what you use.
Or I'm just I'm putting words to it right now. But like am I trying to impress somebody by this? The answer has to be no. And then it's like. Will this stop me from growing if I start talking about it at this level right now? Yeah. And if I don't perceive that, great, I'll take a risk. Yeah. I'm interested in it. I want to share.
I love that lightness of it.
Yeah.
Losing the lightness of those options of like, oh, well, this is just this funny thing. Let's just talk about it. Like the lightness and the openness and the freedom of bringing it up seems like. If I lost that would be the disaster to me, right? But like, no, now you have to shut up, never talk about anything, just go and research it, and then when you're ready, how do I know when I'm ready? I don't know when I'm ready. Then I can share it. Who am I sharing it with? Well, should I tell these guys or those guys? Am I ready for them or for them? Oh, that would create anxiety for me. Do you see what I mean? That is anxiety creating, just thinking about all of those things. I go like, no, this is just very light. Yeah. And the results are satisfactory. Maybe, would the results be better if I did it that way? Maybe. But, and again, I'm not talking about the whole thing. It's a whole thing here, a whole thing there. No, sometimes this, sometimes that. Yeah, it's a balance and a mixture of things. Yeah, it's very easy to jump into. It's like this for every situation. Yeah.
Well, Stoicism is like very generalized in that sense, where it's trying to give you one rule, and then it's like on us to be like, okay, well, how does this one rule apply in all these different situations?
And it is overarching, 100%. But when you get down into the weeds, all of a sudden gets very confusing, right? So, yeah. And it's good to get down those weeds because that's where we're actually working through it of like, well, I see this is not just one rule apply all. No. There might be different buckets inside of it and still this is overarching over all those buckets, but there are different reactions because of there are different concepts inside of those buckets.
Yeah. Well, we have to get down to the weeds if we want. The danger with a book like this is you read it every day and then like nothing in your life changes. And I think that happens when we stay at that higher level and we don't get down into the weeds. Like if I want to make this change in my life or I want to find something to change, I have to go down into the weeds.
Well, yeah. I mean, reading the book and talking about this, we are in the weeds.
Yeah.
So hopefully you're with us in the weeds. Anyway, good times. Let's do it.
Ah, nice. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you. See you
Good
tomorrow.
to see you.